Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm a former manager at Amazon. I've founded multiple companies and I've managed many engineering teams. And I'm going to talk to you today about behavioral interviewing, why it matters, and how to win the behavioral interview. First, why do companies do behavioral interviewing? They want to get to know you and your experience in a way that shows what actions you would take, and it helps them predict what will you do once you're on the job and working for your new company. Especially at FANG companies, this is very much the norm. You can't escape behavioral interviewing as a software engineer. Now, each company has a different set of behaviors that they care about, and different behaviors that they care about for the level of job you're applying for. If you're going for an internship, SD1, 2, 3, senior, principal, so forth, you need to come prepared for that level. And you need to be aware of what are the behaviors that you need to have narratives ready for. So narratives. Your answers really need to be a narrative, and they should follow the STAR format. The STAR format is just situation, task, action, result. So for your situation, you just need to give quick background information. You need to talk about what your task really was in that situation. What action did you personally take? And what were the results? What happened after? What did your actions get you? A good example of this is, let's say, someone asks you, tell me about a time where you had to dig deep to get to the root cause of a problem. What was it? How did you figure it out? You shouldn't say something like, oh yeah, we had a bug on production and I had to, look at the logs and find a stack trace and then post a fix and it was done. That's not impressive, right? Even for that same situation, you can convey a lot more information and talk up what you did. Help the interviewer understand what's the scope. It could be your resulting actions could be as simple as just looking at the logs and going from there and then posting a fix. You should talk about what else did you think about? What else did you consider? What other actions did you take or prune out? How did you not even look at the logs? Is that just what you always do? There's so much more you can include in that narrative. You could say something like, oh, I got paged for an anomaly in the middle of the night. I woke up. I triaged this to first see that this is actually a real customer impacting issue. It needed to be solved right now. So I couldn't go back to bed. I acknowledged the page. I got to work. Done. I looked at all of our dashboards. I looked for other failures in other systems. I contacted our related teams on call for support and debugging. I found the issue and a stack trace. I coded a fix and paged my senior engineer to come online because this was very pertinent. This is impacting customers right now. We got the code reviewed. We went through bypassing deployment control and we got to prod all in 30 minutes. And we then took corrective action to make sure that bugs like this couldn't happen again. That's also follow-up for these kind of dive deep bug fixing ones is what did you do to make sure it didn't happen again? Amazon in particular is really big on the COE process. So it's pretty much every other thing. They care about not making mistakes multiple times. They don't want to have so many mistakes happening all the time and every team making the same mistake over and over again. It just doesn't work. So think about the STAR narrative. Think about talking up your experience and think about presenting narratives that are correct for your level. Waking up in the middle of the night and fixing a bug quickly, that could be interesting for, early career engineers, you're pushing it for a senior engineer. That's not showing the scope for a senior engineer, especially with digging deep to get to the root cause of a problem. That problem needs to be a lot harder to figure out, and that's showing your experience and your knowledge. If it maybe takes you a week of investigation to find the root cause of the problem, get it fixed, that's looking a lot more like a senior engineer. Principal engineer, the scope's even higher, and the people you interact with should be even higher. So keep that in mind with behavioral interviewing. Always follow a STAR format. Always hit the right scope. The higher the scope, the better. You can always aim for the highest scope possible with your answers. And feel free to talk it up a bit. Don't embellish. Don't lie. Definitely do not lie on behavioral interviews. You can get caught in a lie, and that's going to tank the whole interview. Your interviewer is not just going to ask the opening question. They're going to ask deep follow-up questions to understand what's going on, to test you, to figure out what really happened. Now, the other big piece of this for the behavioral interviewing, you need to create narratives in advance. They don't need to be specifically tailored to a particular behavior, but you need to have what you've done in your career, what are the biggest, most impactful things you've done, and have those front and center in your mind, or even in your notes to the side if you're doing a virtual interview. And that's fine. No one can remember everything, but you want to come across as very impressive. And the more work you do up front to jog your memory and be ready to answer quickly, to the point, and be impressive, the better you'll come across. So that means writing out all kinds of different things you've done in your career. Biggest problems you've solved, biggest projects you've delivered, biggest conflicts you've had with people, be they, a QA, a product manager, a designer, your own manager. Think about times when, you've won and lost arguments. It's okay to lose an argument. It happens all the time. What matters most is, what do you do after losing the argument? Amazon has a whole leadership principle on this. It's called have backbone, disagree, and commit. Have backbone means you should be ready to make an argument. But disagree and commit means if you lose that argument, you got to commit to the result you didn't want. And that's celebrated. That's great. All right. These are some opening tips of behavioral interviewing. I'm going to follow up with more specifics about particular leadership principles and how you can win the behavioral interview and get a great job at FANG. All right. Thank you.